Hello?
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can
Sorry.
hear you now. What do you got for me?
Okay, awesome. So I emailed you, probably not sure if you remember, about I'm a political science major in California. There's like a few different things I kind of wanted to go over, but one of them that's like really been on my mind is like, so throughout high school, you definitely get this sense of, because I was especially, into the whole Dave Rubin, like anti-SJW. I always like told myself I leaned left or whatever, and I was like a true liberal or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But a big thing that I was really curious about going up to college was the left bias that a lot of like the right and especially like the intellectual dark web and all of them talk about. And obviously, I don't. I mean, I haven't. I don't know exactly like specific data on this, but if I were to assume, I would assume that most professors do lean left, and I would assume that this does, possibly play a role into their teachings. And the only reason why I specify the fact that I'm in California is because like I don't want to generalize my experience to the broad range of all universities, especially like fucking private Christian universities and all that shit. But
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely noticed here. I've not had one professor aside from a communications professor who wasn't left leaning, and it wasn't relatively obvious in their teachings.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that nothing that they taught was untrue, but I just kind of wanted to know your thoughts on it, whether or not you thought it was a problem, because in a sense, it's like, okay, I do like the fact that I feel like the left is just more engaged in academia in general. So, of course, left wing ideas are going to be brought about throughout, a college campus where like academia is where it's at. But yeah, but at the same time, it's like, I don't necessarily to become a sort of effective indoctrination machine. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's a problem for sure, but I think the problem is that like conservatism like is so anti-intellectual or anti-academic. I think that's like the big problem. I mean, I think it's
Right.
really important to represent both sides so that neither side like pulls off into any extreme direction. But
Right. And that's kind of where I wanted to go from there is I genuinely feel as though like reactionary beliefs and like one thing I want to do like after I graduate is go to grad school for political theory. And something that I've just really noticed is how throughout the years, like you're absolutely right, conservatism and like reactionary beliefs are just so anti-academia and science. It's like, and it's always about this narrative of show the
academia is
other
all,
side of science.
yeah.
Exactly, show the other side. Where's the other side about evolution? And then now it's about climate change. And now that we're discovering new things about the social sciences, it's like conservatives today probably don't like acknowledge any real social science, like other
Yeah, it's
than
all
like
fake bullshit. Or even science, or they'll say like psychology is a social science now and it isn't a real science, right? Yeah.
right. And it's a problem because we need to start treating social science. Obviously, it's a lot harder to measure in the same way like political studies and like other social science studies as we can like with biology or physics.
Mm-hmm.
But I think especially I know you and I both agree, particularly with a more determinist, materialist perspective on like how humans how behave and cause effect relationships. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's important to start viewing social sciences through this lens. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really annoying, particularly even when I'm talking to other people who are on the left but don't have a background or even really understand the social science. I'll describe to them like, oh, like these are the reasons why we're having like an insurgence, or like maybe this is possible reasons why we got Trump. And they'll almost like take my reasons as like justifications, or like or even when you describe like any sort of like terrorist attacks, these are the reasons or the preconditions that like led somebody to do this. And it's like I'm not giving the normative statement that these things are good, but like
Yeah,
the
so
a
like
lot
for
of
instance,
people.
like we get attacked on 9/11 because of our fucking run in the Middle East, and then a lot of conservatives here they're like, oh, so you think it was right for them to attack us, right?
Right, exactly,
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
exactly. Yeah, no, definitely on that route. And yeah, so I think that like a lot of it is You had a conversation with somebody, or you're having a conversation with a few.
Your mic cut out. Hold on. You said you were having a conversation.
So, sorry, yeah, somebody called me.
Oh.
Using my phone.
What a fucking loser.
So
Second.
I know. Somebody. So you're having conversation with a couple people about obviously in public figures, like they were talking about like how you got to back. They were just talking about Hassan and like how you got to be able to like back up your statements or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody was saying something like, do we have kind of like a moral responsibility to learn philosophy?
Mm-hmm.
And philosophy, the thing is I genuinely don't believe that everybody's even capable of understanding philosophy, even if they were to put the time and work into it. Because I mean, the amount of conversations that I've had with people who are political, but not enough to where, it fucking like runs their lives as much as it runs mine,
Mm-hmm.
They are incapable of thinking about things from a meta perspective.
You're talking
And
about like engaging with hypotheticals, like stuff like that, or
oh yeah, they're like, you draw any sort of analogy and it's like, oh, that analogy is different, therefore it's
yeah,
not the
I
same
run into
thing.
this a
Like,
lot. I
oh
can't agree
yeah.
with you. I have to believe that people are capable of doing it, but like, yeah, no, it's very frustrating when it's like, well, okay, like, do you think it's okay to kill people sometimes? Like, yeah, sure. Okay, well, what about like if someone's breaking into my house? It's like, well, okay, sure. If someone's breaking into your house, well, but hold on, like, is your gun loaded? Or they'll ask like a question, and it's like, this doesn't have anything to do with like what I'm asking,
Right,
or like you're trying to use a
exactly.
hypothetical, and then like, so I do this, and like people are like this doesn't match. I was like, well, no, it's a perfect match. It is. You're just like, you're focusing on things that don't matter, and then people will get mad at me when I use like extreme hypotheticals. Like, well, I'm using an extreme hypothetical because I'm trying to isolate the variable we're talking about. Because if the hypothetical isn't like extremely pointed, you're gonna look at some shit that's not even fucking related to it. Yeah.
Right. And they don't even make like a conscious effort to understand like analogous reasoning, or like how the or how it what's it called how the analogy is what it's trying to illustrate,
Mm-hmm.
actually, like what's the argument and what's the point it's trying to illustrate.
Yeah.
And I mean but I dude, honestly, like, I mean, maybe you have like a better it's probably
No.
because you're talking to people all the time, but I don't know, I genuinely don't, because even with the latest gun debate that you had, like, he was so incapable of understanding how his logic tree didn't follow, and intuitively it's like so correct. It's like, oh yeah, it's like, you think that, like, increase the right to gun laws, if it makes them more violent, like, why are all these states like not as violent? But it's like, that's not the argument being presented. And even when you fucking like draw it out for him, like with a fucking pencil, like, he is still incapable.
Like
So I don't know.
completely lost. Yeah, it's really
Right.
frustrating.
Yeah, no, definitely. The only other thing I kind of wanted to talk about was, are you aware of like the political tests, like where it like graphs you on a scale? I'm sure you've the political compass.
Yeah, I've seen like a lot of those types of things. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's interesting because it's nice to like almost try to attempt to like graph political beliefs in that way, but there's so many things that like those types of graphs can't really tell you about somebody's
Yeah, of
underlying
course.
ideas. And it's so frustrating because it's like, conservatives especially, you've had another conversation about this recently, where they have this extremely surface level understanding about political ideology, to where it's like big government versus small government,
Yeah, and it's
right?
like big.
And,
That's literally the lens through which they view everything. So like they look at like big government, and they're like, this is literally socialism, and then National Socialism has socialism. So any big government is the same as Nazi Germany, and it's
exactly.
like, dude, like that. The analogy that I use there is like I'm in one building with like a blue room, and then upstairs there's a red room, and then like in a totally different building there might also be a red room, and people think that like if you walk upstairs in one building you'll appear in another just because the rooms are a similar color, and it's like the dumbest like understanding of like
Right,
anything, and it's like, this is
exactly.
so
It's
stupid, you know.
right. No, yeah, absolutely. And even like my high school history teacher, he always like told us like he would never tell us his political beliefs, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was so fucking obvious like he was right wing, just based on like
Oh,
no, he like one time he was like trying to show us like the difference between socialism and capitalism, right?
uh-huh.
For socialism, he showed us this like CNN interview with Michael Moore, and like there was just like a heated argument. And then for capitalism, he showed us like this like eloquent speech by Milton Friedman, and I was
Yeah, of
like,
course.
dude, like,
Yeah.
like what, like, not even comparable.
God,
but
or when
he was,
conservatives try to claim people that they think agree with them, like when
oh
conservatives
yeah,
try to say things like Martin Luther King would have agreed, like, oh my God,
oh
like,
yeah,
or like George Orwell. If you read 1984, George Orwell learns or warns us about like extreme leftists. Like, no, you're so wrong. What are you talking? Oh God, yeah.
yeah. No, it's so bad, and especially the lack of history between party lines. They think that the Democrat Party has always been like the party of the left or something like that.
Sure, or like the
Whereas
Democrats like were against civil rights, and the Republicans were the ones that like, yeah.
exactly. Well, I mean, like all you have to know, in order if like anybody ever brings like, oh, like this person was a Republican or like, I don't know, whenever they draw party lines, all you need to understand is like literally effectively, the reason why the parties switched was because fucking conservatives were so goddamn racist. It was because right when FDR, a Democrat, who Democrats at the time were pretty prominent in the South, started implementing like heavy like what's it called, like social welfare policies and all that.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the rhetoric was essentially been able to use in the southern cities, where they were like, no, like these all these fucking black people are like taking away you're like they're the ones who are like depriving the system, like they want your social benefits, which is sort of what made like the South flip into a more like okay, like maybe we don't need as many social, but they love like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. They the only reason why they think that they're so just like pro or like anti social safety net is because of like the racist dog whistling that's like,
Sure, yeah.
these goddamn thugs and
there's
all that shit.
I'm sure you've heard of this, but just in case someone in chat hasn't, I guess there's an interesting study that was done that asked people how they felt about like certain welfare measures, and based on whether or not like you demonstrated these by showing pictures of black people or white people, it would change the way.
Really?
Yeah.
That I don't actually know about that, but that sounds
like if you showed like if you showed people
right.
like pictures of like black people first, then they were less likely to be on board with that type of certain welfare programs. But if you showed people pictures of white people, they would think that it's like more acceptable. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's unbelievable, and it's also unbelievable every day when I like hear studies like that. Just thinking about how much we are victims to our own psychology. Like we really like. We're just a fucking victim to our brain, and our brain doesn't give like a fuck. Like it associates, certain things with like negatives or positives or whatever, and it's like we can't help but have implicit biases or I don't know.
Yeah, as long as you can just like be aware of them is all I ask for. What I try to do, yeah.
Yeah, no. If you want, I could just give you a brief abortion argument, only because I feel like I understand your.
Go hit me up with your take real quick. Just do it. Go for it.
Okay. All right. So Destiny's like ethical framework is essentially like descriptive egoist, right?
Sure.
You believe that. No, but you believe that, and the only want to extend rights to others is because if you were in their situation, you would want it to be good for you, and so. In the case of like a fetus, you wouldn't want to be aborted, right? So
sure, yeah.
is that a good summarization?
Yeah.
Okay. So the problem is, at least within the first 2 trimesters, especially, is there's no you being a fetus and not wanting to be aborted because there is no you, because you are essentially your consciousness, and there's no consciousness in a fetus, so it is like incapable of having wants or desires or anything like that. So you do technically like the material makeup in which that makes your body now, parts of it may have existed, but you as a conscious being, you didn't come into existence until about the 3rd trimester. So that's essentially what I would say is the only. Like from why I think it makes more logical sense to if you want to value like or respect the desires of others, it would only make sense to respect things that are even capable of having desires, because it's not like something to be a 1st trimester fetus, but it is like something to be a 3rd trimester. You don't understand what I'm saying?
Kind of, yeah, sure.
All right.
What about killing people that are sleeping, though? Help me with this one.
So, okay, this is a tricky one, and admittedly, I fell short when I decided to. I thought it would be fun my freshman year of college to go up against Ben Shapiro and end up on one of those compilations.
Wait, did you email me?
I did, but I don't know if I.
I
mentioned
watched
Ben
this,
Shapiro.
didn't I?
Possibly.
I think you
Yeah, so
emailed me. You emailed me a video where you asked me to address your abortion argument, and you emailed me a video of you in a crowd asking Ben Shapiro a question on it, didn't you? Do you remember doing this, or do you not remember doing this?
Was it a while ago?
It was a while. Oh no, wait. Someone else in chat saying it was them. Okay, never mind. Maybe do I have multiple
Okay.
people? Okay, never mind. Someone in chat is saying it was them. Okay, sorry. Okay, go.
Okay, yeah, no, it's all good.
I feel like you would remember if you emailed me this, but yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, well, I've probably emailed you like I have 3 or 4 times. I don't know, whatever.
Okay.
But so when it comes to that is the tricky one, and the only thing I could say to that, I mean, well, the thing is I'd say that first of all, in somebody who's in a coma, I'm not sure if their sentience dies completely. I think that I'm not necessarily, I guess, equipped enough with the evidence to know whether or not, and I don't know if we are as a society to know whether or not they are still having conscious thoughts or like being a sleeping person.
Mhm.
But I don't think you necessarily lose sentience. And obviously, where you can tell where I'm coming from this, I'm someone that's where I come from. I care about sentience. I'm like a vegan and all that shit.
Okay.
But so to that, although someone is, I guess, when we say unconscious when someone's sleeping, I don't necessarily know if that means that they're that they're insentient or incapable of. They're still having thoughts. They're just not. I don't know. They're just not in a different state of mind, I guess. And so, like, when you go into a coma in which you may wake up or you're asleep, it's not necessarily that you lose sentience. And that's where I felt Ben Shapiro. He was like, because I was like, oh, sentience is what like makes me. He was like, okay, so he's like, what about when you're asleep? And I was like, I don't think you lose sentience. And then he was like, what about when you're in a coma? And I was like,
yeah, that's a really hard one.
I mean,
because
exactly.
I feel like a good argument that you could use against me. This is one that I've kind of thought of over the past couple hours. A good argument that you could use against me is I'm not really concerned with what happens with dead people, because once you're dead, you're dead, right? Your mind doesn't exist anymore and all that. You're not capable of conceiving of any consequences that happen to you. So if you want to fuck my body or whatever, it's whatever. So like, what is the difference? What is the material difference between like a dead person and then like something that hasn't yet developed like a conscious, like a child or whatever? I guess you could kind of point to that. So like, well, so like a child isn't capable of conceiving like anything in regards to it. So like killing a child is the same thing as like, when I say child, I mean like a fetus. We'll say something before 6 months old. Killing a child is the equivalent to like killing a corpse. Like you can't really do it. But then I guess but then I run into things where it's like, I think that the sleeping thing is legitimate, and maybe that's true. Like, you know, if you kill somebody that's sleeping, like the person really doesn't know, and then they die, so it's whatever afterwards. I'm not sure. I don't know.
I mean, it does get tricky, and I almost want to go down a route where it's like, well, you can cause secondhand harm by like killing somebody's friend or something like that. But like obviously in a vacuum where it's like where they don't have friends, or it's like you know this person is sleeping and nobody will ever know if you ever killed them. Was it, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess it would also just come from respecting the desires of things that have been sentient, whereas when you're a fetus you haven't in the past. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know, man.
Oh yeah, that's true. Cool. If you use a sleeping argument, you can almost sneak that into arguing for killing anybody, right? Like, let's say that I could painlessly kill you right now. Like, well, once you're dead, you can no longer evaluate that scenario. So is that even right? Yeah, I don't know. It gets really weird. Fuck morality.
Yeah.
All right.
No, definitely.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having me, bro.
Yep. Have fun, buddy. Peace out.